Hello guys, and welcome to the Code Patch. My name is Nick and this is your 7th C++ programming tutorial. Now in the last tutorial we explained what if branching is, and we had a bunch of ifs and it was kinda hard to read and it was a little bit complicated. So I want to teach you guys now how to optimize your code a little bit so it just looks nicer. So you remember we had those two ifs. One said like if value is greater than 50, and another said if that same value is lesser than 100. So now we want to put those two ifs into a one if. So how do we do that? Well, you just write if, and then the first one was value is greater than 50, and alright, value is lesser than 100. So this and, this symbol is a symbol for and it basically says if both of these conditions are true, then this whole if is true. But if one of them isn't true, then the entire if isn't true. So and is only true if these both conditions are true. That's why the name itself says and. So this and this must be true. Alright, so that is how we check, for example, an interval from 50 to 100. So let's just say we want to check another interval and we want to do that in the same if. So we just put in brackets this and then say r. Alright, so the symbol for r is these two vertical lines, and then let's just add another interval from 200, right, 200 to 1000. Alright, so if is true only when two of these operands are true. So here and here, these both must be true. For this in this bracket is true. So what an OR is basically says if any of these conditions is true, then entire if is true. Alright, so the name itself says OR, so it's this or this. So any of those is true, then whole if is true. And this is how you check two intervals with only one if. And you see, for this, if we didn't write it in one if, we would have to have four ifs for all of these values. So that is why this and this or is a very nice way for you to put multiple conditions into one if. So let's just now print a message to know if our program works. It's from those intervals. Alright, so just to assure us that it is from those intervals. So now let's just compile and run it, and it's going to ask us for a value, and we're going to put, for example, 65. It's going to say it's from those intervals, and now we're going to put, I don't know, something like this, and it's going to say it's from those intervals. So if any of these conditions are true, then this if will be true and its body will be executed. Alright, so that is how we can optimize our code to look a little bit nicer, and that is really important. Even though the function of the program is still the same, our code looks nicer, and that is important because if you're going to be a programmer, you are probably going to be working in groups, and it's very good for your colleagues to understand and easily read your code. So when one of your colleagues or teammates opens your code, it should be easy to read and it should be understandable. So that is very important in the programming world, trust me. So just keep that in your heads for now, and just think about it when you write something. Alright, so the second thing we're going to learn is an if and else if statement. So what an if and else if statements? Well, it's basically the same that we learned, just written a little bit different, and sometimes it's needed to use an else if rather than just two ifs. So let's just say we wanted to check if this value is equal to 50. Now, just as and or has its symbols equal also has its symbol, and it's this. So note that when you check for the value, you have to put two equal signs. So it's not the same when you say a is equal 5 and check if a is equal to 5. So these two are not the same, right? This one check if a is equal to 5, and this one says a is equal 5, all right? So now we check if the value is 50, and then we're going to write like cout value is actually, and we're going to print out the value and line. So now we know this value is surely going to be 50, because if is true, then value is surely is 50. So we could print just value is actually 50, but let's just write it like this, right? And now we want to put an else if. And how is this different from just else? Well, you remember else had no more conditions, so it was just else then the body. But else if has another condition, and we're going to say if value is equal to 100, and then print out cout value is actually, then value and line. So now we check for this, and then else if check, we have to check another value. So that is why we use else if when we have another value that we want to check. Yeah, and yes, we could have just another if right here, but sometimes it's needed to use this else if, and you'll see that later why. So, and in the end, let's just say else, and just put, if it's anything else, let's just say it's anything else. And let's just compile and run this, and alright, this is an error, we have to delete this. Let's just compile it and run it. So let's just enter 50, value is actually 50. Now let's enter 100 and say value is actually 100. So, and now let's just put in anything else like this, and it's going to say it's anything else. So you see the difference between else and else if. It's basically in this condition. Else is basically anything else, and else if it's specifically something else. Alright, so that's it for this tutorial. I hope you guys understood me, and I hope you guys learned something new, and thank you so much for watching.